There's the throw in, bounces off some rackets, goes off to the black side, and Braxton's going to have a go. He just knocks it back into Daniel's racket. Daniel flips it back in front of Braxton, which is probably a pretty good place to put it. Braxton's got it, carrying it down the field looking for Zach. His team is a little bit behind now. They need to be putting some points on the board. It's up. It's in.
Okay, we're going to watch the black number 2. He knocked it to the ground, I guess, and then is knocked back to him, and he's just now got possession of it. So as the black 2 gets possession of it, he's got somebody close on his left side. He's heading the direction that they don't want to go. He's got an orange player on his left side and an orange player coming up on the right side. So he needs to do something pretty soon. So he flips it out in front of his number 3, and that is the way I prefer to pass to a player. Not to pass directly to their racket, but to pass where it's going to bounce before they get it, and you put it in front of where they're going, or you put it in front of where they are, so as it bounces they run right onto it. And that's the way he passed that one. So as his other team gets it, he could have ridden off the orange player on the Palomino horse, but now that he's let him aim more to the center of the field, he should not continue moving toward his ball carrier to mark up that player. So what he should do is back off, let that player go, and just hang out away from the ball carrier where he would be available for a pass. And you see him checking up there, letting that player go, and he does hang out away from the activity just like he is supposed to. Okay, now we'll watch the black number 3. He started turning out like he's supposed to, and then he went for the ball, which was not in his area. We're not working on lineups now, but his number 2 should have gotten that one. But he goes for it and ends up just kind of batting it and not picking it up. But he bats it back where his number 2 can get it, so that's a good thing. Now his team has it, and he would have to go toward his ball carrier to mark up any of those players, so he should stay away from the pack, being available for a pass. And he does look for the pass. The ball carrier puts it out in front of him, and now our number 3 is carrying the ball. And he has the whole field to get past and all the defenders to get past. His 1 is way out front, and if he had thought about it, he could just throw it from there as far as he can down the field. It'd be in front of his 1. Nobody else is around there. It'd give his 1 plenty of time to get the ball if he didn't get it right away before any other player could get there. But he elects to carry it himself. So he went past that player and took him on his stick side and within range of his racket, which I would not suggest that you do. He could have easily run further to the left side of the field, just around out of reach of his racket, or turn back around and come around, letting his number 2 pick up players and taking a side that's protected by his number 2. But he gets past that player, and on this one he checks to take this next player on his non-stick side, and he gets the pass off.
Could be Braxton have a chance at it. He does get it, almost out from under Dan. Braxton carrying the ball Only orange shirts out there to pass to. He's just going to try to take it himself. It takes a little bit of a low bounce, but he's got it on the second go around. Trying to avoid Dan.
First, we're going to watch the black number 2. The black number 3 just picked the ball up in the end zone. We haven't seen the black number 2 yet, but he should be making himself available for a pass. The player takes it himself, and he should either be marking up a player if he can do it without going towards the ball carrier, or picking up a player. And there, he's finally come on to the scene. And as we finally see the black number 2 that we're watching, it's at a time when the ball carrier is under pressure and really should do something to avoid being under that pressure. He should, and his number 2 is over there in a good place to pass it to the number 2, but he should have made the pass before that orange player got within reach of his racket. So he's really under lots of pressure, and the ball comes out, and I don't know if he was throwing it or if it got hit out, but it goes pretty much to the number 2, and then I think there was some kind of penalty call, so I don't think the play goes any farther. So watch the black number 3 as he gets the ball in the end zone. He keeps the number 1 on his non-stick side, looking for someone to throw it to. Evidently doesn't find anybody, and keeps that player on his non-stick side as he goes across the line, but then goes out in front, and the number 1 switches sides to chase him on his stick side. So he's got the orange player on the Palomino horse closest to him coming up on his stick side, and another player, orange player, coming up from kind of far away. So he really should do something to avoid letting that player on the Palomino horse get within reach of his racket. Some things he could do is turn completely left, going behind the other orange player. He could circle completely around, putting both those orange players on his non-stick side, or he could put it out to his teammate if his teammate is out there to throw it to already. But he doesn't do any of those things and lets that player get within reach of his racket. And so now he's under a lot of pressure. He's got a player over there ready to catch a pass, but he isn't going to be able to throw it to him easily because he is really under a lot of pressure on his stick side. But there, the ball comes out of his racket, and it's going right to his number 2, but I think there was a penalty called, so the play does not continue any farther.
It could be a steal. Daniel goes down. He's got it away from her. Can he get a connection in with Zach? He puts it up.
Okay, we'll watch the black number 2, where he gets the ball kind of by himself. One defender on the field on his non-stick side, so it's no threat. And as he continues down the field, there's 2 players coming up, but he's keeping his left side facing to both of those players and keeps them on, both the players on his non-stick side, and gets the pass off.
And we've got time back on, and in the throw in this time, Zach grabs it out of the lineup. He passes it over to Braxton to carry it down the field. But hopefully pass it back to him just before he pushes it between the posts. Oh, but Rachel isn't even going to let Zach get in the end zone.
Take it to him.
First, we'll watch the black number 2 in the lineup. The number 1 snagged it in the lineup, and the appropriate thing to do for our number 2 would be to get away from the pack. Instead of turning around going after any of those orange players, he should just kind of veer away from that player and everyone else to be available for a pass. His other alternative would be to turn to his left and look behind him in case one of those orange players was coming, where he could mark him up without moving toward his ball carrier. And right there, it looks like he's trying to mark up that orange player and going toward his ball carrier to do it, which would not be correct. If he wanted to mark up a player, he should be looking over his left shoulder and picking up the orange player on the Palomino horse, because he could mark up that player and not be moving toward his ball carrier. Now that the ball has been passed off and his ball carrier is heading down the field, now he can angle away from his ball carrier and mark up the player he's already against. So continuing to mark him up is okay at this point. So he marks him up, pushes him off the field, and he's off the screen, I think, for the rest of this play. We'll see if that's true. Okay, we haven't seen our player come back on the field, but you can tell the player he was marking up is coming back, so he has quit marking him up. And in order to mark him up, continue to mark him up, he'd have to be moving toward his ball carrier. So he should be just hanging out behind that player, making himself available for a pass. So there he's come on the screen, and sure enough, he is hanging out. And you can see he's pulling back on his horse, so he's not trying to rush up there to mark up somebody. He's staying back where he's available for a pass, just like he should be doing. Now here he's going too close to his ball carrier, but then he checks back up and gets a little bit more space between him and the ball carrier. And right now, the position his ball carrier is in, he could actually turn left and angle away from his ball carrier to mark up the player on the Palomino horse, or he could just hang out there and make it himself available for a pass. And it looks like he's hanging out, actually getting a little bit too close, but he is still just hanging out. Now here, his ball carrier tries to use him as a block. And that's okay. When they're doing that, he should actually stand completely still and straight parallel with the field. Looks like he's turning as if to try to pick up this player by turning toward his ball carrier to pick him up as he comes by. And now he is definitely moving toward his ball carrier to mark up a player, which he should not do. So here it looks like he's still heading toward his ball carrier to mark up a player, where he should be hanging back more and angling away from them to get a little bit farther away to be available for a pass. And he does kind of check back there, and I think the ball is hit out of the racket, but anyhow it gets up in there and pretty much lands in his racket. This time we'll watch the black number 3. Okay, the number 1 has just snagged it out of the lineup, and the whole team is turning out, but we won't talk about the lineups. But his number 1 has the ball. In order for him to go mark up a player, he'd have to move toward his ball carrier, so he should hang out away from the pack and make himself available for a pass. So he does make himself available for a pass, is out in the open, and they do pass it to him, and now he's carrying the ball down the field. Here he has a player coming up on his left side, and instead of, he could just deal with him, let it go ahead and pick him up, let that player pick him up on the left side, and perhaps he may not get down the field. He might have to turn or something. But I think he checks up and lets his number 1 get in there and block a side for him. I think he slacks up so his teammate can start marking up a player and open up a side for him to get past that player. So there he checks up, and his player had gone to that orange player's left side, so our ball carrier figured that left side is clear, but the black player on the white horse overrode, so he didn't really continue to be clear. So as he carries on, that Palomino horse is in danger of getting him. In fact, he was within reach of his racket, but he finally turns away like he should have done before he got within reach of his racket. And then he's going towards a player that's on his left side, and a player's coming up on his right side, so he's getting himself in potential position of pressure. So he needs to make arrangements for that, and probably the proper thing to do would be throw it back to his number 2, who's probably back up here in midfield, hanging out, waiting for a pass. So he lets both of those orange players override him, so he's got clearance again, nobody on his stick side, but his 1 is not in the area still, and the number 1 is going to come right by him with the orange number 3, and the orange number 3 is going to be within reach of his racket, so he should toss it over here to his number 2 before the orange player gets within reach of his racket. But that orange number 1 went past him. He still hung on to the ball, and he gets in position to be able to throw it in the end zone, but I don't think his number 1 is ready. So he's still doing okay. Turns away from that player that is on him, and he's getting close to this orange player on the Palomino horse, so he should angle left so he stays out of reach of that player's racket, even if that means he's not so close to the end zone to get a pass to his 1. But he turns away from that 1 player, but he probably turned in front of this other player. So if he had just angled to the left rather than making a hard turn, he could have done that without crossing this player that was coming up on his left side. So then the ball comes up, and I think it probably got hit out of his racket, and then I think a penalty is called, so that ends this play.
Call on it, but she left it on the ground. It's cleaned up by Olivia Utrich, the number 3 on the white team. Olivia carrying it down, looking for Grace, the connection with Grace. And she gets around Fulton. Can she get it? The ball into Grace Nelson.
First we'll watch the red number 2, who's hiding behind the telephone pole. There she is. Her team's got the ball, and they want to go to the right side of the screen. And she could go up and get towards any of those other players. Maybe not the one farthest away behind the telephone pole, but either of the other ones, she could turn around and pick them up and that would be appropriate. So she didn't go directly after any of those, and now she would have to be moving toward her ball carrier to mark somebody up. So at this point, she should be hanging out, making herself available for a pass, and her ball carrier is getting right between two opposing players. So the ball carrier may be looking for somebody to pass it to. So she's still off the screen, but hanging out away, available for a pass, and that's still appropriate. So right here, she's gotten a little bit closer than she should have been in order to be available for a pass. She should have stayed a little farther away from them. And now two players are getting on the ball carrier, so it'd be a good time maybe that the ball carrier might want to pass it, and she's just a little too close to the pack to be very clear for a pass. Okay, right now her ball carrier got out of that situation. Now she can go angle away from her ball carrier and pick up the red number 1, it looks like. And she does kind of hold that player, but now she's starting to drift toward her ball carrier again to hold that player. And now she's moving too close to the ball carrier, but as the ball carrier moves away, it'd be appropriate for her to maintain that one player that's behind her, but she's overridden him, and now she's going to turn back toward her ball carrier to mark him up, which is not right. And couldn't see her right there, but I think she was moving toward her ball carrier while she's marking up that player. And the ball carrier gets the pass off. So we watch the red number 3. That's the girl closest to the camera that has just picked up the ball. And looks like she has a choice to go around her defender and around the whole pack, or she could cut closer and go between her two players and still go around the pack to get down the field. So now here she's going between two players, between two opposing players. Because behind the telephone pole it's hard to see, but instead of continuing left around all of the black helmet players, it looks like right here she's decided to cut between, go to the right of the player that's behind the telephone pole and to the left of the number 1 with the black helmet. So sure enough, she goes right next to one player on her right side. She gets past him, but it wasn't the correct way to get down the field. And then she's out of range of that player that she went past and is getting close. She really looks like she's starting to turn away, but she's really too close. She should have turned away before she got within range of the black helmet number 2. And in fact, she lets him get right up there while she has another player on the left side, and she doesn't pass it off, but she gets away. Now she's got everybody on her non-stick side, so that's good. She backs up, has her own player protecting her stick side. turns away from her defender here, and that's good. And she stays out of pressure until she gets the pass off.
Line though, I can't tell if it's in or out. Olivia goes down and stole it out of the end zone. Olivia, the number 3, picks up the ball, passes it off to Grace, the number 1, and they're headed down the hill. Grace is going. Colton's going to try to get it because he can't go in the end zone. Grace turns away from pressure, slows things down a bit, keeps it under control. We've got about 2.5 minutes, still lots of time. Oh, and here comes Bolton again. And Grace just turns away every time, turn away from pressure. And she can do that all day. Oh no, they're doing good. There you go. Just stay clear. Okay, he's passed off to Olivia to help carry down the field, and Fulton's now going to go after Olivia. And he's got it.
Okay, first we'll watch the red number 2, or the white helmet number 2, which is kind of the closest white helmet, kind of in the middle of the screen to the camera. And her number 3 has just gotten it in the end zone. So while she's waiting for it to come out of the end zone, she should be getting clear for a pass and staying away from the middle. So we're watching the number 2. She's supposed to be getting clear and staying away from the middle. It looks like she's trying to mark up somebody instead. Now the ball is passed out. Now her teammate has it. So now she could mark up somebody if she wouldn't have to go toward her ball carrier to do it. But in order to mark up any of those, she'd have to go toward her ball carrier. So she should hang out away from the pack, being available for a pass. So I guess she's kind of hanging out. She's certainly not going to try to get somebody. But now she could actually angle away from her ball carrier. She's not on the screen. But she could angle away from her ball carrier to mark up that black helmet player that's also not on the screen. So her player's carrying along. We assume she's back there holding that player away from the ball carrier. And okay, here she's back on the screen without that player. So she could have been you can actually ride somebody off without having contact with them, just stay in between them and wherever you want to keep them from going. So she could have been doing that up until her player turned. Now that her player has turned and is headed up this other direction, now she can go toward one of those other players in front of her and get beside them, clearing the way for her player. And that's probably what she should do. But what she should not do is head back upfield. In fact, she would be better off continuing facing downfield the way she was, even if those other players curved around and headed toward her. Of course, she could have picked up one of them, but even if she couldn't, she's better off just continuing facing downfield, because once they make her turn away to mark them up, she's now having to move toward her ball carrier to mark them up. So she should not. She should just stop where she was and be available for a pass. And I can see that she's not going all out to mark up anybody now, so maybe she is kind of hanging out away from the pack to be available for a pass. That is what she should be doing. So her player makes another turn, and she's continuing going upfield toward her player. Looks like maybe to pick up this player next to her. It's okay to pick her up, but she shouldn't be moving toward her ball carrier to do it. If she has to move toward her ball carrier to do it, she's better off letting that player go and letting them pass the ball back to her. Okay, now she can turn away from her, not be heading toward her ball carrier to mark up that player. And since her ball carrier is behind her, what she wants to do is just stay on one side of that player, protecting that side of the field. And she can't do that from back that far on him. She needs to be in front of him where she can control him from being able to turn toward her on the field, or to prevent him from turning toward the side that she has protected. So she's off the screen for a while. Holding up that player is a good thing to do if she is just maintaining herself on one side of that player, protecting that side of the field for her ball carrier. Even if her ball carrier is, fighting with one other player, that's fine. The player should be able to do that. But here you can see that player that we were watching let the black helmet player get between her and the goal, and it looks like our player that we're watching is moving toward her ball carrier to continue marking that player up, which she should not do. And there she was starting to move toward her again, and now when it would be appropriate for her to move angle away from her ball carrier to get flat up against the same player she's behind right now, it looks like she's backing up to go toward her ball carrier for some reason. So sure enough, there she goes toward her ball carrier, and even though she could mark up that player behind her, doesn't look like she has any intention of doing that. So if she's not going to mark up that player, she shouldn't be trying to mark up either one of these others. And if she's not marking up that player behind her, she should hang out away from the ball carrier to be available for a pass. And it looks like she's in the hanging out mode. And she's kind of in an okay position to be available for a pass, so I guess she's still doing okay. And here, still hanging out. And now the ball is passed off to her other player, and going to either of the first two red players should have to be moving toward her ball carrier. The way the ball carrier is facing right now, she could angle way over to her right and pick up, I think it's the number 3 in the black helmet, and angling away from her. But if she's not going to mark up that player, hanging out available for a pass is still an okay thing to do. So now as she would have to go towards her ball carrier to mark up anybody. Hanging back was a good thing to do. Okay, now we'll watch the white helmet number 3, who has just picked up the ball. And here she turns toward somebody to get past him, which is wrong. She does get past that player and then gets the pass off to her teammate, who is out there waiting. Now her teammate has the ball, and you actually have defenders coming up on her teammate right away. And anytime they would get in this position, it's really a strong play for her to pass the ball right back to the number 3, because all the players are on the number, I guess that's the number 1 that's carrying the ball now. And our number 3 has nobody on her, and if that number 1 would pass it back to the 3, she could take off some of the pressure by marking up the people that were coming after her. But anyhow, so what our number 3 should do is just be out there available for a pass. So once again, flipping it right over, all the defenders are on our ball carrier's right, and she could pass it to her players on the left that doesn't have anybody on them. And our number 3 being available for pass was fine. Now that her ball carrier has gotten in front of her, she could actually look back and pick up one of these players behind her. She should not try to go for that number 2, I guess, or whichever one is right on the ball carrier, but it would be fine for her to pick up either one of those black helmet players coming up behind her. Can't really tell what our number 3 is doing. She didn't pick up that player behind. If she had just been hanging out for a pass, that would have been okay too. She wasn't in a very convenient spot to be hanging out for a pass. But now that her ball carrier is turned back upfield, it would be appropriate for her to mark up that player right next to her, or even go forward further downfield and mark up the one before and stay on one side of them to clear that side for her ball carrier to come down. It looks like she's finally decided like she might go mark up a player, but she should not turn back upfield to do that. If she has to turn back upfield, she should have not tried to mark that player up. Just let him go, continue facing downfield. Even if there's nobody that she's marking up, she's in a good position to take a pass. And it appears that she didn't go all out to mark up that player, so hanging out for a pass is fine if that's what she's doing. And I think she continues just hanging out. Which is okay. There are times when she could be able to mark somebody up without moving toward her ball carrier, but she seems to be more interested in just hanging out, which is okay as long as she continues to keep herself available where they could get a pass to her. And they finally do throw it to her. So now she's carrying it, and she keeps away from those first ones, and here comes somebody. Now you kind of wish that she had done something before he got within reach of her racket. And here again, she could have passed it off to her number 1, who's on her left, and there are no defenders over there on the number 1, and she could just, make a nice little pretty pass right to her and pick up this defender, and the number 1 would be all the way down the field. But she should make some kind of evasive maneuver because she has somebody come up on her stick side. The other thing she could have done would be to turn left, but her player is there. She shouldn't turn in front of her player. So if she can't turn there and isn't going to pass it to that teammate, she's stuck having to deal with the person swinging at her racket. But as it turns out, they do swing at her racket and gets the ball loose.
And it is. Olivia comes up with the ball once again out of the opposing end zone. Olivia Utrecht steals the ball, and she'll be wanting to get it down the hill again. That Fulton would just quit bothering her. Olivia coming up, bouncing it to herself this time. She's just going to carry it, dog. Coming up against a pack of horses. Olivia's going, and here comes Fulton. She's going to try for a connection. What a wonderful connection! Oh, and then...
Okay, first we'll watch the red number 2. There she is. Over there, the farthest right of the screen was her number 3 has the ball in the end zone till it comes out. She should be getting clear for a pass and staying away from the middle. So I don't know that I'd say she's staying away from the middle, and by the middle I mean the area that the ball carrier would be most likely to come out bringing it herself. There she's actually doing okay, stayed away from the other players and was away from the middle. And here she actually put her racket up as if she really wanted that player to throw her the ball. They didn't. Now once the ball has come out, she really can't mark up any of these players from this position, so she should get a little farther away and still be available for a pass. And this is another one of those instances where she's out in the clear and the ball carrier is getting a lot of pressure on her opposing players, on kind of on all sides of her, where if they would throw it to our number 2, the number 2 is out there by herself with nobody on her. And what our number 2 should not have done is, drifted in front of our ball carrier. Even if she was marking somebody up, I'm not sure that's what she's doing, but she should have actually gotten further away. So now the number 2 that we're watching, it's appropriate for her to mark up that player next to her because she can be angling away from the ball carrier to do it. However, she was not staying between her and the ball carrier. Between the defender and the ball carrier. And then she's not in the rest of this play. So now we'll watch the red number 3, or the white helmet number 3. She's just picked up the ball in the end zone. Turns away from a defender. That's a good thing. And as she's maneuvering around in the end zone, trying to get out, which she can do all day without pressure, as long as she never turns toward the defender or lets them get up within reach on her stick side. So he was a long way away. Here she turned toward him, but he's a long way away, so that turn was okay. And then she bounces it out. And when she bounced it out, she's bounced it right into the pack. And this would be a good time to put it to one of her players that isn't under so much pressure, which in the situation they are now would be her number 2, and her number 2 could actually be in a little better position to be available for a pass, but even the position she's in would still be a good person to throw it to. But our number 3 hangs on to the ball through all that and then starts off down the field again. And here she's starting off where she has all the black helmet players on her non-stick side. So she's starting off in a good way to get the ball down the field. Then 2 people are coming up on her non-stick side, so that's okay. And here, right about here, she's has to make a decision. She can make a decision to check up and maybe even turn completely around away from this person. But at the speed she's going to have to make a commitment about now, because she's getting close to the sideline and he's slightly forward of her, where if she continues going straight, he may be able to push her to the sideline. So if she's not going to turn, she may have to throw it. And it looks like her plan is to throw it. She's looking at her potential receiver down there, and sure enough, she does actually show it. Now look and see where she throws it. She threw it to a very good spot. It could have been even farther beyond her player, but she threw it not to her player, directly to her player's racket. She threw it to where it would bounce and be in front of the player is intended for. I think those are much easier to catch. You don't have to be as precise with your throws, and I think you have a better percentage of your team ending up with the ball if you pass them that way rather than if you pass directly to their racket.
There, we got time on. We've got to throw it. This time Daniel comes up with the ball off the ground. Daniel for the black team.
Up, Daniel!
Throws it out there in front of Braxton. Oh, it took a bad bounce, but oh, he's got it. And Braxton wanted to get a connection into Zach. He's getting orange shirts all around him. Braxton passing over to Daniel. Daniel put it in.
First we'll watch the black number 2, who has just reached out and picked up the ball, and he gets away from the other players and then turns away from the first defender that comes up on him. He keeps that player on his non-stick side and then passes the ball off to somebody else. I think he's out of the rest of the play, but where he passed the ball was out in front and beyond his player, which is the way I like to have them passed. If I don't think he's on the screen anymore, but after he's passed it off, he could mark up that player that was on him, or he could just hang out available for another pass. So he hasn't come back on the screen, but the player he was on has come back on the screen and made it up to his player, and I do see him now hanging out, being available for a pass, just like he should be doing. So he's still just hanging out, available for a pass, continuing to face downfield would be preferable. As his player gets too far away from him, he might wander a little closer, but he's still okay. And then his player does want to pass it, and he accepts the pass, passes it right back in. And then the ball's in the end zone. Okay, now we'll watch the black number 3. The number 2 has just gotten the ball, and the black number 3 is behind the telephone pole. It would be appropriate for the black number 3, if he wanted to go toward one of those orange players on the left of the screen, but it would not be appropriate for him to go towards the orange player that is next to the ball carrier. And if he doesn't want to go mark up a player, that's fine. He should just hang out, being available for a pass, which kind of looks like what he's doing. And the ball carrier likes seeing him open there by himself, and he passes it out there, bounced it in front of him. I think it took a weird bounce, but he does pick it up and carries it on up towards the end zone, but his number 1 isn't there yet, so he has to kill some time. And so far he's protected, not under any pressure, with nobody. Right now he has nobody on his stick side. So he's had one defender on his left side and another one coming up on his right, and then he starts doing some things wrong. He starts to make his evasive maneuver before that player gets within reach of his racket, but turning toward another player, hitting their body with your horse's head, is not an appropriate move to make. He did have a free player out there by himself behind him that would have been more appropriate to just throw the ball over to him. If he wasn't up against the 30-yard line, he could do some other things, but that was really his only option by the book, was to throw the ball away, and he would have had to throw it about just before that second player gets up to his stick side. But he gets away, and there was a crossing between him and the second orange player coming up. I'm thinking it was the orange player that turned toward him, but none of that gets called, and he does get some maneuvering room, hangs onto the ball, and has both the defenders now on his non-stick side. So you saw a little bit of his teammate hanging out there, and he's about to get one orange player on each side again, and this time he's a little farther away and probably would be okay to turn toward that orange player on the Palomino horse if that's what he wants to do, but he should make some kind of maneuver or get rid of the ball before that second orange player gets up within reach of his racket. And he doesn't make his maneuver before he gets within reach of the racket. Now the other player has gotten pretty close to him. He's not sideways against him. He could still turn away. But he backs away and got out of that little deal. Here he was able to put both the players on his non-stick side, and then just before the other one comes up on his stick side, he races out in front, keeping that player out of reach of his racket, which that is good. And so that maneuver was made at the correct time. And then he may have gotten almost within reach of the racket, but he gets the pass off where he wants it to, and then they get the pass.
Throws it out there. Pretty far, but he's got it. He's got some help if he wants it. Let's see if he wants help. Zach carries the ball down the field amongst a bunch of orange shirts coming up in the third.
Now we'll watch the black number 2. His team just took a 10-yard penalty throw, and now they have possession of it again. He is in a position where he should not try to mark up. He's way off the left of the screen, actually not even on the screen. But he would have to go toward his ball carrier to mark up anybody, so he should be hanging out away from the action and being available for a pass. And he'll probably come back on the screen here at some point. Okay, there he is on the screen, hanging out away from everybody and available for a pass. He was doing just what he was supposed to do. So the ball carrier elects not to pass to him, not to go around him to use for, blocking or whatever. And now that his ball carrier is in front of him, in order to mark somebody up, he would want to be between them and the ball carrier, not just beside them. And he should not try to mark up that one next to him. He could stay back and angle over and pick up one of those behind, or he can still stay out and available for a pass. Okay, this time we'll watch the black number 3. Of course, their number 1 just took a penalty throw, and now the number 1 has possession of the ball. So right now, the number 3, who is nearest the camera, could angle away from the ball carrier if he does it immediately in that position, and pick up that player that's next to him. He's got his shoulder in front, so once he gets up against him, pushing against his shoulder, he'll be angling away from the way the ball carrier is going right now. If any of that changes, if it gets to the point where he would need to go toward his ball carrier to mark up that player, he should quit doing it, but we'll see what happens. So now he's actually going towards his ball carrier. He didn't bend that player, and his ball carrier took a curve to where he's going, where he took a turn in front of the way our defender was going. But now that the ball carrier is turned away, now it would be appropriate for our number 3 to continue marking up that number 2, because he can do it without moving towards his ball carrier. And he's about to be in front of the ball carrier, so all he has to do is stay up on one side of that orange number 2. So he gets off the screen. I can't really tell yet what he's trying to do, but he evidently wasn't thinking so much about continuing to mark up that player as he was to just being clear for a pass. And so he's looking to the side, being clear for a pass, even though he's got somebody pretty close to him and he's very close to the sideline. So he's still hanging out and available for a pass, and then I don't think he's in the rest of this play.
Braxton takes it to his offside, spins away from the first pressure, puts it out there in front of Daniel, right into Daniel's racket. Now Daniel wanted to connect up with Zach. They haven't been making very good connections. Let's see if they do better this time.
Okay, we'll watch the black number 2, who is not on the screen yet. That's his 3, bringing it out of the area. And the black 2 isn't on the screen yet, but the ball is being thrown out in front of the black number 2, or maybe directly to the black number 2. But anyhow, they were passing it to the black number 2, who was out away from everybody else, being available for a pass like he should have been. So he carries the ball on down the field, and if he keeps that pace, he won't be in any trouble, and he gets the pass off. This time I'll watch the black number 3, who must have been taking a regular penalty throw and decided to take it out of the area, which was fine. He threw it to his offside with the defender on his right. He threw it off to the left side, which is appropriate. Then when he picked it up and the orange player was there, he turned away from them, which was also very appropriate. So he sees that he's got 2 players right with him, and his number 2 is out there by himself looking for a pass, and he puts it out to his number 2, and I don't think he's in the rest of this play. So I guess I lied. He did show up there on this play again, hanging out, since he would have to go toward his ball carrier to mark up one of those players. His only appropriate thing to do is to hang out away from the action, being available for a pass, just like he's supposed to do.
Dory's looking for a number 1. Going into the end zone. Look, not open yet. There's looking. She's trying to get open.
Come on, boys, get on her.
There's the pass. Oh,
Okay, we'll watch the red number 2, who is kind of in the middle of the screen behind an orange player, but up against him and riding off an orange player. Our number 2's number 3 has just picked up the ball, and they want to go toward the other direction, towards the left of the screen. So since his ball carrier is behind him on relation to the field and the way they want to go, his job is to just stay on one side, stay up against that player on the one side, clearing that side for his ball carrier to go down the field on that side. And he's pretty much doing that, just keeping on that one side of his ball carrier. Now that the ball carrier gets in front of him in relation to the field and the direction they want to go, his job would be to stay between the ball carrier and the defender. And we can't really see him on the screen to tell if he's doing that or not. But here, when he comes back on the screen, right there, he did not stay between him and the ball carrier. So riding him off, trying to keep himself between that defender and the ball carrier. He's riding him off and angling away from his ball carrier, so that is still appropriate. Then when the defender gets to, and the reason the defender was able to go anywhere is because our number 2 overrode, didn't stop when he stopped. But when the defender gets to where now he would have to go toward his ball carrier to continue marking him up, he should quit marking him up and just stand still, stay away from the pack, being available for a pass. And sure enough, that is what he does. And so far, our ball carrier has them off on his stick side, or on the non-stick side, but she has an option of a player out in the open if she wants to use him to continue maintaining possession of the ball and get it down the field. And he stays out there and available up until she passes it into the end zone. Okay, this time we'll watch the red number 3, who has just picked up the ball and she wants to go the other direction. So she circles around, has one person coming up on her non-stick side, and what she'll want to do, she actually kind of veered off of him just a little bit to prevent him from connecting with her, sped up, and then she connected with him forward of him. And so instead of him controlling her, now she is in control of him. And she stays forward of him and is in control of him. Could be all the way down to the 30-yard line, but her number 1 isn't ready, so she has to check up and kill some time. And in the meantime, she keeps him away from her stick side, and then is threatening to have somebody come up, another defender come up on her. She turns slightly to keep them both on this non-stick side for a little while, and then moves forward, pushing one of the defenders into the other defender, still keeping them both on the non-stick side until she gets the pass thrown in. Actually, she took control of both of those defenders and then still made the pass in.
Missed. And now Robbie's got it, taking through their end zone, looking for Tessa. Tessa's looking for a spot to get open. They're fighting.
Okay, first we'll watch the red number 2, and that's the red number 2 in the middle of the screen, kind of, who has just picked up the ball, and they want to go towards the left of the screen. So the red 2 keeps that player to his left, and then looks like the player gives up, and so he just goes on past him and gets the pass off with really no pressure. So now watch the red number 3. Her red number 2 has just picked up the ball kind of in the middle of the screen, and she's off to the right of the screen. And we don't see her in much more of this play, but there is an orange player back there with her that is also not in the play. So I assume she's just been marking him up and keeping him out of the play.
Dory's doing her 10-yard throw. And they're off. Dory tosses it, and it gets bounced away. Dory misses. Dan misses. Dory's got it. Bounces. She misses. It's on the floor.
Okay, first we'll watch the red number 2, who I think is the farthest left of the screen right now. And his player has the balls, taking a penalty in the end zone. Then they bobble it, but while she's in the end zone, he should be making himself clear for a pass. Here she picks it up again, and no, she missed it that time. Now she goes to pick it up. Okay, there she's finally picked up the ball again in a racket, and our number 2 is fairly clear for a pass, so he was doing the correct thing up to there. Then she comes out trying to bounce it to herself. It goes off wild. And so it's loose here for now. And our number 2 is up against somebody already. And so that's all he can do. The person that was bringing the ball out still is trying for it, and still is first to it, and still is trying at least to pick it up. So here now she's passed it up, and the other team gets it. Number 3, she's taking a penalty throw right there in the end zone, and she first tries to pass it out, and it gets knocked back in to the area, so they don't have firm possession yet. So it gets knocked back into the area. She misses it here. The orange player on the Palomino horse misses it here. And then she goes back down for it and then picks it up. So now she's got it, and she has a person kind of clear that she could throw it to. Or she could go to her right a little bit and connect or pass up that other player on her non-stick side. So she elects to bounce it herself, and she did bounce to an area that was pretty clear, and then I think it took a weird bounce, so she doesn't get it first go around. And then she goes back down for it and misses it and has to get out of the way, and the other team comes up with the ball, and so they don't have possession anymore.
Dory tosses it to Tessa. Dory's going. Rachel's pushing on Tessa, make sure she doesn't get into that end zone. Dory's just waiting for Tessa to get in there to be open.
Hey, got two. Hey, got two.
Waiting. Tessa's open. Robbie's got the ball, waiting for Tessa as well. He's got 2 orange on him.
Okay, first we'll watch the red number 2. He's the farthest to the right of the screen right now. And his number 3 is bringing out of the area. He was clear for a second, but then the orange player came up to him, and the 3 has taken the bounce to herself. So once she's got it, he's in front of her. He should not follow that, or he should not try to go toward her ball carrier to mark up that player. And the one that was next to him, he would have to go toward her. So he should just be hanging out more than marking up to stay clear. Now that she has the ball carrier's angled a little bit left, he can angle a little bit to the right away from her, and now it would be appropriate for him to pick up that player that he's already riding off. So there he is, kind of riding him off. He did have his shoulder in front for a little while. Looks like he got it behind. Now he's got the shoulder back in front, but then he's overridden that orange player, and in order to continue riding that player off, he'd have to move toward his ball carrier. So at this point, he should quit trying to mark up that player and just hang out away from the action to be available for a pass. And it looks like he does kind of stay away and makes himself available for pass. She passes it off just slightly before that opposing player gets to her. So now the player we're watching has the ball over to the right of the screen by himself, and when the first players come, he turns to put them on his non-stick side. So then, just as the second player was coming up on his stick side, hopefully just before they got within reach, he passes it over to his number 3, who is standing out there all by herself. And now he should not go toward the ball carrier. He should hang out for a pass, because he would have to go toward his ball carrier to mark up either of those others. And then she gets the pass off. So now we'll watch the red number 3. She's taking a penalty throw in the end zone, and she takes it and takes it out to midfield. And I guess the other team must have thought she was going to be throwing it to her number 2 waiting in the field, because both those players hit it over toward her until she bounced it to herself. But right now she's in the clear from all the defending players. And if she's heading downfield, she would be wise to connect forward with the Palomino horse before he connects forward of her and controls her, possibly stopping her. And it looks like she does connect with him forward, so she should be able to control him to continue on down the field. And she's in pretty good control of him. She has to slow down because her ball carrier isn't there, which loses her forwardness on the other horse, but she doesn't really need that. She just needs to keep that player on her non-stick side, and she's doing that okay. So she just continues turning away every time that player comes, and then now she's kept that one player on her non-stick side, and now she has the other player approaching her on her stick side. So before that other player gets within reach of a racket, she needs to do something to avoid him, either make a turn before he gets there to put both the players on her non-stick side, or pass the ball off to her other player. So as he comes just before he gets within reach, she actually started turning also, and she might have even been able to hang on to the ball if she wanted to, but its easiest thing is to throw it off over there to the other player that is away from pressure. And once she throws it, it would be appropriate for her to immediately pick up this orange player to her left on the Palomino horse. And she doesn't bother marking them up. And if she's not going to mark them up, the appropriate thing for her to do, and now it's actually too late to go mark them up because she'd have to be moving toward her ball carrier. So the appropriate thing to do would be hang out away from them to be available for a pass. So she's hanging out, and just before the second player gets to her teammate, she is available for a pass, and she does get the pass, and she ends up getting the pass into her number one before the other players get to her.
Got it. Picks it up. Cat has the ball. She's looking for a partner to bounce her throw to. She bounces. She has it. Trying to move it down the field. She's getting there. Lots of pressure from her number one. Kiki's going into the area. Kiki.
Okay, first we'll watch the blue number 2, who is in midfield near this 30-yard line. Her teammate has it coming out of the area, wanting to get out of the area, so until it comes out of the area, she should be trying to get clear to make herself available for a pass and staying away from the middle. Here, where she runs into the end zone to do that is illegal. She should not be allowed to do that. And she seems to be kind of also trying to mark up that opposing player before the ball gets out of the end zone, which she also should not do. So her teammate goes ahead and takes the bounce over the line, even though she had just a very narrow angle to get out, and her teammate, as well as some opposing players, were in her way to keep her from continuing on down the field. But she gets it, and she's got her bounce, and now we're looking at the number 2. So it would be appropriate for our number 2 to go downfield away from her ball carrier and pick up that black player that is farthest to the left of the screen. And it looks like she does try to mark up that player. And since her ball carrier is behind her, all she has to do is stay up against that player on one side of her, facing downfield. She gets a little bit too far in front, like passes her up if she was actually trying to just stay beside her. And now, in order for her to continue going after that player, she should be moving toward her ball carrier, so she should not try to go after that defender at this point. And if she's not going to go at it after it, what she should do is just stop right where she is, and when that defender gets over toward her ball carrier, she'd be out there in the open just waiting for a pass. So I couldn't tell if she was actually pursuing that player or just kind of hanging out, but now it looks like the ball carrier has come very close to her defender, or the person that our number 2 is defending. And for the ball carrier to get that close to her while you're very close to her wouldn't be the wisest move. But if she were getting close to her where that player's on her stick side and wanted to pass it to our number 2 is really not away from the defender in a clear spot to take a pass. So the ball carrier got by that one instance, and now our number 2 that we're watching once again would have to be moving toward her ball carrier to mark up that black player. So she should not try to mark up that player that's next to her. She should just hang out away from that activity and be available for a pass. Okay, it looks like she went after that player anyhow, even when she was moving toward her ball carrier. But now that the ball carrier has moved downfield of her, now she can mark up that player and not be moving toward her ball carrier. So now it is appropriate for her to mark up that player that's next to her. And as she marks him up, it's still appropriate. She's still angling away from her ball carrier, so it's still appropriate for her to mark up that player as she is doing. And what she's doing here is still okay, and she holds that player until they get the pass off, it looks like. So now we'll watch the blue number 3 who's taking a throw from the back line. And she just took the throw. It took it to her offside, but it bounced toward her, so she actually picked it up on her stick side. And if she had taken it to her stick side, because that black player was so far away, and it bounced that same direction, it would have been out of her reach, and the black player would have surely gotten it. So, and if she threw it to her non-stick side in this situation, like she did, and it took a bounce away from her more, she would still be protecting it and be first to it. So taking a bounce like that on the side away from the defender is almost always a good idea. So she thinks about coming out. The player comes up on her stick side, and she turns away from them. That's the correct thing to do. And she's looking to get out, trying to decide if she can throw to anybody. Nobody seems to be clear, so she tries to take it herself. And that taking it herself was a very risky place to put it. She didn't have her teammates getting clear. And her option would have been to turn back to her right, away from her defender, and try another approach. But she elected to do that, took it at a sharp angle with the opposing player kind of holding her up close to the line, and her teammate and another player blocking her way from coming straight on down the field. So the player that's marking her up overrode her. Her teammates kind of cleared out of the way, and she's able to keep that player on her non-stick side and get some running room down the field. So right here, she could have turned very more sharply when she made her first turn away from that player that was against her, and come right back up against that player who would then be on her stick side. But she elected to go farther away. Maybe she thought she could get down the sideline or something. But when she changes that plan and cuts back, she puts herself very close to one of these black players, probably within reach of their racket, where she could have just curled around and stayed very close to that other black player and had a whole lot more of the field open to move around as she was taking control of the player that was defending her. But she gets past that player and now has some running room. The only player that is a threat to her right at this moment is the player that is on her coming up on her non-stick side. So for a while she had her shoulder in front of that player, which would have been the appropriate position where she could control the black player all the way down the field. Then she got a little bit behind and may go back and forth, and I don't know if she's in control or not. But she didn't continue her good position up against that player that she had at first did have. But she's carrying on down the field, and that player isn't defending her. Here she's gotten forward again and actually pushed them over a little bit. And she continues taking control of them until she gets the pass off.
The ball is down, missed, and picked up by Baltimore. Looking for Kiki. Kiki is going down to the end zone. Lots of pressure from that one. Tosses. 3 has it for Baltimore. Looking for Kiki. Kiki's getting ready. And it's a toss.
First we'll watch the blue number 2, and she's just picking up the ball right there. And she wants to go to the left of the screen. She's got somebody chasing her on her right side. She keeps circling away from them, staying out of their reach, which is a good thing. And here she comes up with another player coming up on her stick side also. And she got a little close to them, I think within reach of the racket, which I would not have wanted her to do. And she's got her 2 players over there to the right. Either one of them would be clear for a pass, and it probably would have been better to pass it probably to that one that's farthest out in front rather than getting close enough where the other person could hit her racket. But she hangs on to the ball. And there's her already swinging at her racket, and she's got a opposing player on each side, so she actually should have gotten rid of it before they got within reach of a racket, and they've been within reach of a racket for a while. But here again, now they have her completely crossways to the field, and she has a player back there that's staying back, available for pass. So there, she finally does throw it, and the way she threw it, it actually hit the black player's racket. So she could have thrown it a little safer, but it went right to her intended receiver, and they caught it. Now the person, the blue number 2 that we're watching, that's farthest to the left of the screen, would have to be going toward her ball carrier to mark up either one of these players. So she should not mark up these players. She should let them go to her ball carrier, and the ball carrier has the option of throwing it back to her. And she may have been kind of hanging out, but now that the ball carrier has turned around and headed down the field, right now she's headed toward her ball carrier, but if she just angles a little bit to her right, she'd be angling away from her, and she would be able to angle away from her and pick up that black player to her right. And she does kind of pick that player up,
and was angling away, and then it was okay, but now she's kind of getting pushed back toward that ball carrier, and so she should not continue riding that player off, because in order to do so she would have to be moving toward her ball carrier, so she should quit riding her off right about where she is. But the ball carrier gets the pass off before anything else happens. So now we'll watch the blue number 3. She's over here towards the right of the screen next to that white horse, and her number 2 has just picked up the ball. She could go towards that white horse without going toward her ball carrier if she wanted to mark somebody up. She's actually turning the other way, and the ball carrier needs to turn around. But if our number 3 goes ahead and goes to the left and comes back against any of these other players, should probably be able to go against any of these other players depending on where the way our ball carrier turns. But she could, make that circle to the left and mark up a player if she wants to. So now she circles around and her ball carrier is coming up here. The player we're watching, the 3, can go toward the player that's farthest to the left of the screen and mark her up if she wants to mark up somebody. And if she should not go towards any of the other players on the field at this point. But if she doesn't want to mark up another player, she just should hang out a little bit away to be available for a pass. And looks like she's in the hanging out mode. Now looks like she may be trying to get up against a player, which would be okay because she's moving away from her ball carrier. And now here, where she is trying to mark up that player that is right next to her ball carrier and on the stick side, it's really not appropriate for her to be trying to mark up that player because she is moving toward her ball carrier and actually pushing and encouraging that black player right into her ball carrier. So she slacked off there, so that was a good thing. She shouldn't have been moving toward her ball carrier, and now she looks like she's in the slacking off mode, hanging out away from the activity where she's available for a pass, and that is what she should be doing. And here she hangs out, available for a pass. Now it would be better if she were not facing upfield, facing the direction you want to go is the preferable position you want to be in. And it wouldn't have hurt for her to be just a little bit far, maybe a yard or so farther away. But the ball carrier did want to pass to her, and she caught the pass and has control of the ball now, away from any pressure. And she only has somebody to deal with on her left side, and if to do her job the best way, she would want to connect with them, forward of them, before they're able to connect forward with her, so she can control them on down the field. It looks like she didn't come over to connect with them quite as soon as she could have, and maybe getting in a position now where that black player could get forward of her. But she's able to continue going down the field, and with no other pressure, gets the pass off into the end zone.